EAS, or the Emergency Alert System, is the national panic button. Their robotic tones are designed to cut through any broadcast and grab a viewer's immediate attention, followed by an evacuation, seek shelter, or stay in place message depending on the situation.
The National Weather Service in Morristown has issued a tornado warning for Anderson.
These alerts were first implemented during the Cold War with something called CONORAD, a network designed to deliver presidential messages during a potential nuclear attack. From there, they evolved into the Emergency Broadcast System, and finally the modern EAS in 1997, a system that has saved countless lives ever since. And while it's primarily used for things like Amber Alerts and flash flood warnings that many are familiar with, it can actually do a lot more. In fact, most of its critical alerts have either never been used before or were only activated a few times under very specific circumstances. These are the rarest and most disturbing EAS alerts and what they represent.
The civil authorities have issued a hazardous materials warning for Chelmsford, WA, and Douglas, WA, beginning at 12:22 p.m. and ending at 1:22 p.m. KHQ.
This alert is used when harmful, non-radioactive substances are released into the environment, especially when they pose an immediate threat to people nearby. These substances can come from any number of sources, from a truck carrying a dangerous chemical getting into an accident on the highway, to a factory or a chemical plant catching fire and spreading toxic smoke to its vicinity. That said, the most important part of this particular alert is the message that comes after the attention-grabbing tone, as it usually includes information on what to do next. The correct action depends entirely on the type of hazard. If the substance is airborne but not highly dangerous, authorities may issue a shelter-in-place warning. This includes telling people to stay away from the affected area. They are also instructed to stay inside, lock all windows and doors, and immediately turn off any system that pulls in outside air, like air conditioning or heating. This helps create a sealed environment to keep contaminated air out. One such incident occurred on August 28, 2024, when the Rochester Fire Department responded to a semi-truck rollover at the interchange of Highway 52 and Interstate 90 at around 7 p.m. They rushed to the scene expecting a fire, but instead came face to face with something far more dangerous. As it turned out, the truck was hauling chemicals that were now spilling across the highway, including sodium chloride and hydrogen peroxide. While not very dangerous in small quantities, the sheer volume of the spill and the risk of airborne contamination forced authorities to issue the rare hazardous materials warning. People in the surrounding area were advised to shelter in place and, if possible, stay upwind of the crash site to avoid any potential health risks. Fortunately, the situation was able to be resolved without any casualties. However, there are times when a shelter-in-place warning is not enough. In the more severe cases, the alert can also include an order for evacuation. This is issued when the hazardous material is an immediate health risk or potentially explosive and is also spreading uncontrollably. An example of this occurred on the evening of February 3rd, 2023, when 38 cars of a freight train derailed near East Palestine, Ohio. Most of these derailed cars were carrying hazardous chemicals that quickly spread throughout the surrounding area. 5 also contained a chemical known as vinyl chloride, which caught fire and resulted in a massive fireball, spewing toxic smoke everywhere. Given the scale of the situation, authorities quickly issued a hazardous materials warning across New Palestine, along with an evacuation order for all homes within a 1 to 2 mile radius of the derailment site. Thousands were forced out of their homes, and many were left with no choice but to relocate permanently. And while no official numbers exist on the health toll, many residents reported troubling symptoms like rashes, bloody ears, and rapid hair loss in the months that followed. That said, things would have been far worse if people hadn't received the alert and evacuated in time. Some could have also dismissed the alert as fake and stayed home, which would have likely cost them their lives. After all, while not common, false EAS alerts still happen more often than they should. Like in September of 2016, when following a train crash, the WKTV network in Utica, New York displayed a strange hazardous materials warning reading, "Civil authorities have issued a hazardous materials warning for the United States, effective until September 29, 2:16 a.m. Would you, could you on a train? Wait for further instructions." Luckily, before the alert could spark mass panic, the station issued an online statement confirming their network had been hacked and that the warning was fake.
This is a test of the emergency alert system. This is only a test. The message you are hearing is part of a nationwide live code test of emergency alert system capabilities.
The National Emergency Message is the highest level alert within the EAS. It serves as a direct, unblockable line of communication between the President of the United States and the American public. Most importantly, this alert would only be activated during catastrophic events that threaten the country on a massive scale. These include events such as an imminent military attack, a coordinated act of terrorism across multiple cities, a complete breakdown of national infrastructure, or worst of all, a nuclear strike headed for the US mainland. If the National Emergency Message were ever used for real, it would mean the country was facing an unprecedented level of danger. Though, it's important to note that unlike other EAS alerts, this one doesn't include all the details in and of itself. Instead, it's designed to get the public's attention, which is then followed by a live address by the country's president or his second-in-command, explaining the situation and what to do next. And because of its importance, every TV and radio network is required to broadcast the National Emergency Message without exception. They must immediately stop all regular programming and transmit the presidential message. Even after the address is finished, they are not permitted to resume normal programming. They're instead required to broadcast follow-up emergency information like the locations of closest bunkers in each area in case of a nuclear attack. Now, the National Emergency Message and its predecessors have been accidentally activated multiple times in the past. The most significant of these incidents occurred on February 20, 1971, when the older emergency broadcast system, which served the same purpose, was accidentally triggered on TVs and radios across the country.
This station has interrupted its regular program at the request of the United States government to participate in the emergency broadcast system serving the Fort Wayne area. During this period, many radio stations will remain on the air, broadcasting news and official information for areas assigned to them. This station will remain on the air and will serve the Fort Wayne area. If you are not located in the Fort Wayne area, you should now tune your radio to other stations until you hear one which is broadcasting news and information for your area.
This happened because an operator mistakenly sent the actual emergency action notification tape instead of a routine test tape. The alert caused immediate panic and confusion as it was during the height of the Cold War between the US and Soviet Russia. Many listeners assumed the worst, which at that time was a nuclear strike by the Soviets. Fortunately, the mistake was caught quickly and a correction was issued in less than an hour of the haunting alert.
Something went wrong also this morning with a regularly scheduled routine test of the emergency alert system of the North American Air Defense Command. And as a result, a number of radio stations across the country left the air briefly.
Aside from routine small-scale tests since then, the US government has never faced a situation serious enough to require broadcasting this EAS alert. That said, the one incident where it would have made sense to issue the National Emergency Message was during the terror attack on September 11, 2001, which begs the question, why wasn't it? Now, as far as I could find, the US government has never given any official reason for why the EAS alert designed for national emergencies wasn't used during a national emergency. However, based on everything we know about that day, we can make a few educated guesses on what that reason might be. The first of which is that a presidential alert wasn't necessary at that time. Think of it this way, the National Emergency Message is generally reserved for giving the citizens information that only the president can have, like an imminent military invasion or an incoming nuclear strike. But with the attack on September 11th, everything was already being covered live by TV and radio news stations across the country. Everyone was keeping an eye on the events as they were unfolding and providing the latest updates. Issuing an EAS alert during this time would have only interrupted this coverage and potentially endangered lives by stopping people from receiving the most up-to-date information. Another possible reason, and the one that I find most likely, is that the president and his staff simply didn't have the time to issue the national emergency message. With how the attack unfolded, their top priority was to contain the situation and stop it from escalating. That meant working with the FAA to ground all flights, mobilize first responders and rescue teams, and determine the best course of action moving forward. Not to mention the fact that in the initial chaotic hours, there was no clear actionable message to deliver to the entire public in the first place. But while it wasn't used on September 11th, the US government has kept the National Emergency Message Alert fully operational in case the need for it ever does arise.
At approximately 3 p.m. December 14, 2020, the Lake County Sheriff's Department Transportation Division was notified that a 22-year-old man accused of murder escaped from a private contracted transport van while being extradited to Lake County from Texas.
The law enforcement warning is, at its core, a public safety message that's issued for urgent, usually small-scale local incidents where law enforcement needs to convey critical information directly to the public. Issues like jailbreaks, riots, or some localized terrorist activity like a bomb being discovered. The alert you just saw, for instance, was about 22-year-old Leon Taylor. He was arrested December 2nd, 2020 for the alleged murder of 52-year-old Daniel Nietzsche, a 17-year-old boy named Nicholas Pisani, as well as several armed robberies. However, the arrest took place in Texas, even though his crimes were committed in Indiana. So, on December 14th, the Texas police placed him in the back of a private transport van and extradited him back to Indiana. The transport van was supposed to be secure, but the driver made a critical error. He pulled into a McDonald's drive-thru in Gary, Indiana to get food at around 2 p.m. Leon saw this as an opportunity to escape, and after somehow opening the van's door, he slipped out and was gone before the driver even realized what had happened. The escape triggered a massive multi-agency manhunt. U.S. Marshals, Indiana State Police, and officers from Chicago all joined the search for the escaped murder suspect. But when an immediate search of the area turned up nothing, the Indiana police issued a law enforcement warning EAS alert. This served two purposes. It warned the public in the surrounding neighborhoods of the danger, while also turning thousands of residents into potential witnesses who were now on the lookout for a man resembling Leon's description. Leon must have seen the alert as well, since he fled from Gary not long after and was eventually arrested a second time back in Chicago. Another similar high-profile case occurred in August of 2023 when convicted murderer Danilo Cavalcante escaped from prison in Chester County, Pennsylvania. He was convicted of first-degree murder on August 16th and was given a life sentence without the possibility of parole. But less than 2 weeks after this conviction, Danilo was back on the streets. He managed to escape the jail on August 31st by climbing a wall and running away once outside the perimeter. A day later, he was seen robbing a house in the nearby town. However, despite law enforcement combing through every corner of that town, Danilo was nowhere to be found. There were several sightings in the wooded area surrounding the town, but he always managed to slip away from the police's grasp. Then, on September 11th, he robbed another house and stole a firearm, instantly raising his threat level. This also forced the Pennsylvania police to issue a law enforcement warning, urging residents to lock their homes and stay inside until the perpetrator was apprehended, which is the typical instruction that accompanies this type of EAS alert. The manhunt for him eventually came to an end on September 12th when he was spotted hiding in the woods with the help of a helicopter-mounted thermal camera. Both of these cases highlight the ideal use cases for this rare but vital alert, as it can help inform the public and prevent criminals from causing any further harm to a community.
If you are hearing this message, you are in a life-threatening situation. Do not turn off your devices at this time. The following message has been transmitted at the request of the California Department of Public Health. A catastrophic accident truck involving a truck carrying anthrax has occurred on Highway 101, 2 miles south of San Luis Obispo.
Of all the alerts in the emergency alert system, few are as unsettling as the BHW, or biological hazard warning. This is the official warning for the release of a dangerous biological agent into the environment, and not just something along the lines of a bad flu season or a minor disease outbreak. The BHW is reserved for extreme, life-threatening biological events that pose a severe and immediate risk to public health. And while most situations that would trigger a biological hazard warning are fictional, one very real possibility is bioterrorism, such as someone releasing a weaponized pathogen like anthrax or smallpox into a crowded area. Another possibility is a catastrophic accidental release. High-security biomedical labs around the country handle some of the most deadliest known pathogens. A major failure at one of these facilities, like a building fire, could potentially release one of these deadly agents into the surrounding community. In either case, the purpose of this alert is to provide immediate, actionable instructions to the public to limit the spread of the biohazard and save lives. If you were to ever hear this alert, the audio message instructions that follow the tone would be absolutely critical. The instructions would vary depending on the specific hazard, but the most common directive would likely be to shelter in place. This would involve going indoors immediately, sealing all windows and doors, and shutting off any ventilation system like air conditioning or heating to prevent airborne pathogens from entering your home. That said, if a threat is localized to a specific building, an evacuation of that immediate area could be ordered as well. The alert could also include urgent public health directives, like instructions to boil water, avoid certain foods, or information on where to receive emergency medication or vaccines for the released disease. Given the severity of such an event, it's a relief that a real biological hazard warning has never been officially activated in the United States. So, for now, it's nothing more than a purely precautionary alert for a worst-case scenario that has yet to happen.
That's a great point. There is kind of a theme with Buddha.
Law enforcement situation. Avoid area of I-94 and Highway 67 in Waukesha County.
This is one of the broader alerts in EAS. It acts as a critical catch-all for any imminent, life-threatening hazard to the public that doesn't fit into a more specific category like a tornado or a hazardous materials spill. In other words, whenever a civil danger warning is issued, it's in response to an event that poses a significant and immediate threat of death or injury to a large number of people. Now, this might sound similar to the law enforcement warning we covered earlier. However, while they can overlap, the key difference is scope and source. A law enforcement warning, or LEW, is typically issued for a specific criminal event, like a manhunt, an active shooter, or a police standoff. Its focus is on a direct threat from a person or group. A civil danger warning, on the other hand, is often broader. It's used when the danger is to the civil population as a whole, from sources that can include major infrastructure failures, extreme civil unrest, or other unclassified threats where the primary message is about public survival rather than a police action. Because a CDW is so versatile, the instructions in the audio message are absolutely critical and require immediate action. These could range from an order to evacuate a town due to an impending dam break, to sheltering in place during violent riots in a city. The message will always contain specific, life-saving instructions tailored to a unique danger at hand. And while its most famous use was a terrifying mistake, the civil danger warning has been used correctly for many real-world emergencies. In May of 2019, for example, authorities in Logan County, Arkansas issued a CDW to warn residents that a flood bank on the Arkansas River was about to fail due to record-breaking floods. The alert urged people in the affected area to evacuate immediately before their lives were put at risk. In a more unusual case, in 2011, a CDW was issued in Wisconsin during a historic blizzard. This warning wasn't just about the snow. Instead, it focused on telling people to avoid driving on the heavily icy roads. These examples show the intended purpose of the CDW to warn of extreme danger and provide clear instructions. But the alert became infamous for a very different reason, in an incident that exposed the terrifying potential of a false alarm. On the morning of January 13, 2018, every person in the state of Hawaii was notified of a CDW alert that appeared on their phones. It read in all caps, "Ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill." For the people that received it, this was a notification that a possible nuclear attack was on its way and that they had only minutes to live. And since tensions between the US and North Korea were at an all-time high, widespread panic engulfed the islands almost immediately. People abandoned their cars, scrambling to find any shelter they could. Parents put their children into storm drains, desperately trying to shield them from the impending blast. For 38 agonizing minutes, the entire state believed it was about to be annihilated. Fortunately, the alert was a false alarm. But the story of how it happened is more complex and disturbing than a simple case of someone clicking the wrong button. Official investigations by the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency and the FCC later revealed a catastrophic failure of procedure and judgment. The incident began during a routine drill. However, the script for the drill itself was poorly designed and very confusingly included the language, "This is not a drill." This error led one specific employee to believe that the training exercise was in fact a real missile attack in progress. Convinced that a genuine threat was imminent, the employee deliberately chose to activate the alert. After sending the alert, the same employee was instructed to cancel it, but they reportedly became unresponsive. Another employee had to intervene to finally send the retraction message a full 38 minutes after the initial warning was sent. That said, even with such disastrous failure, the civil danger warning remains a crucial part of the EAS system for when it is truly needed.
This message is transmitted at the request of the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. Lassen Peak is at imminent risk of eruption. All residents within 20 miles of the volcano are advised to evacuate immediately.
This is a highly urgent alert issued by the U.S. Geological Survey and its volcano observatories when a volcano shows clear signs of an imminent eruption or is already erupting. Its primary purpose is to alert the people in the path of danger and instruct them to take immediate action. The specific dangers a volcano warning addresses are some of the most destructive forces in nature. For those closest to the volcano, the alert warns of lava flows and pyroclastic flows, which are superheated avalanches of gas and rock that can destroy everything in their path. But the danger isn't limited to the immediate vicinity. A VOW also warns of lahars, which are volcanic mud flows. These are fast-moving slurries of rock, mud, and water that can rush down valleys and riverbeds, wiping out communities miles away from the eruption site. Then there's the most widespread danger of ashfall. Volcanic ash is not like smoke. It's made of tiny, sharp particles of rock and glass. It poses a major health hazard when inhaled, can cause buildings to collapse under its weight, and can disrupt power and water supplies over a vast area. It's also extremely dangerous for aircraft, as the fine particles can melt in the heat of a jet engine and cause it to fail, hindering any rescue efforts. Because of these varied threats, the instructions in a volcano warning are almost always to evacuate immediately. Viewers are also instructed on the designated evacuation routes they must follow to stay as far from danger as possible. For areas that are further away but under threat from ashfall, the instructions could include shelter in place, which means staying indoors, closing all windows and vents, and placing damp towels at the bottom of doors to prevent the fine ash from getting inside. Though, the safest option is still to evacuate immediately. One of the most significant recent examples of VOW being used to save lives was during the 2018 eruption of Kilauea on Hawaii's Big Island. In early May of that year, the volcano began a major eruption, not from its summit, but from a series of massive crevices that tore open the ground directly inside a residential neighborhood known as the Leilani Estates. The USGS and Hawaii Civil Defense immediately began issuing a series of volcano warnings. These alerts were broadcast over the EAS and sent to wireless emergency alerts to residents' phones, ordering immediate evacuation as lava and toxic sulfur dioxide gas spewed from the earth. For months, these alerts provided critical, life-saving information, guiding residents away from new crevices and advancing lava flows. By the end, this eruption had destroyed over 700 homes and displaced more than 2,000 people. The Kilauea eruption is a perfect example of the rare volcano warning EAS alert working as intended. However, this alert is also responsible for one of the most bizarre false alarms in EAS history. On July 31st, 2022, a bit after midnight, residents across Nebraska were shocked when their local TV and radio stations began broadcasting an official volcano warning. But instead of causing panic, the warning only created confusion, since Nebraska has no active or dormant volcanoes in its territory. As it turned out, the alert was meant for a wildfire, but the sender accidentally selected the volcano warning code instead. It was an honest mistake that was corrected shortly after, though it did show that the volcano warning EAS alert was fully functional on the mainland US as well, in the rare event that Yellowstone ever erupts.
There is an active shooter currently in Juniata NE around the Nebraska area. Shelter in place immediately.
What?
Shelter in place immediately and lock all windows and doors.
Huh?
This is for the Juniata area and 2 miles east of Juniata, Nebraska.
Unlike other alerts that warn you about a specific kind of danger, the shelter-in-place warning is a more generalized instruction. It's the order to immediately get indoors and stay there, issued during an emergency when evacuating would actually put you in more danger. The core purpose of the alert is to keep people safe inside a secure location until a threat outside is passed. A trigger for this alert could be something like a chemical spill or an industrial accident, where the outside air could be toxic. In these cases, the alert is crucial for preventing people from breathing in contaminated air. It's also a common command during law enforcement emergencies, such as an active shooter situation, a manhunt for a dangerous fugitive, or a police standoff. Here, the alert keeps civilians out of harm's way, allowing officers to contain and resolve the situation without risking public safety. Even in cases of civil disturbance or the threat of a major explosion, the shelter-in-place alert can protect residents by keeping them securely indoors. That said, what makes this alert so versatile is also what makes it so disturbing. Receiving this alert could mean anything from a lunatic running around the streets to an ongoing terrorist attack in the city. But regardless of what the reason might be, a shelter-in-place warning is not a suggestion. It's a precise command with immediate steps you must follow, including getting all family members and pets inside, locking the doors, turning off air intake in case of an airborne chemical contamination, and waiting for the all clear from the authorities. Failing to follow these steps can result in injury or even death in some cases, especially when the alert is about something as dangerous as the active shooter that appeared in Nebraska on August 11, 2021. The situation unfolded in the Juniata region of Adams County when the Nebraska PD received a 911 call at around 10:15 p.m. about someone unloading a firearm out in the streets. When the officers arrived at the scene, the shooter, 35-year-old Brooks Hacker, doubled down and got into a standoff with the police. With no other choice, authorities issued a widespread shelter-in-place EAS alert for the Juniata residents, all while trying to calm things down with Brooks. But after a several-hour-long standoff and one of the officers getting shot in the arm, Brooks was eventually brought down by a SWAT team at around 2:35 a.m. He was reportedly trying to shoot as many people and officers as possible during the confrontation, which shows how vital the shelter-in-place warning was. And while it may have startled awake many residents, this rare EAS alert was ultimately a lifesaver for some residents of Juniata.
The following message is transmitted at the request of the San Luis Obispo Police Department. A site emergency has been issued at the Diablo Canyon Nuclear Power Plant in San Luis Obispo, California. A breakdown in safety systems has the potential to cause a large release of radioactive materials into the air.
A nuclear power plant meltdown is one of the most devastating man-made disasters that can happen right after nuclear bombs. That said, the alert you just saw is a recreation. It's what a nuclear power plant warning, or NUW, would look and sound like, created using the official parameters of the NUW Emergency Alert System code. Fortunately, a real NUW for a major emergency has never been officially activated in the United States. This alert is reserved for a dangerous incident at one of the nation's 50+ nuclear power plants. But to fully grasp the destruction such an event could cause and understand the importance of a nuclear power plant warning alert, we need to look at the catastrophic Chernobyl disaster of 1986. When the reactor meltdown happened, Soviet authorities initially concealed the scale of the accident. There was no public warning system. For days, as a lethal plume of radioactive material drifted over Europe, residents of nearby Pripyat were not told of the true danger. This failure to warn led to countless deaths and long-term health problems that could have been mitigated. The NUW exists to prevent such a tragedy from ever happening again. However, if a nuclear power plant failure does happen, the NUW alert would be issued to every TV, radio, and siren within a 10-mile radius of the incident. The official broadcast would also include one of two commands. The first is to shelter in place, go indoors, shut all windows and doors, and turn off ventilation to prevent radioactive particles from getting inside. The second, more serious command is to evacuate, where authorities will direct people to leave the area using specific, pre-planned routes designed to avoid the radioactive fallout. The fact that this system has never been used for a real emergency is nothing short of a blessing. However, that doesn't mean the system is immune to human error. In 2015, an alert was mistakenly sent out over the EAS regarding the Indian Point Energy Center in New York. The message, which reached viewers in New York and New Jersey, was about an unscheduled, non-emergency shutdown at the plant. While the shutdown itself was real, the situation was not a danger to the public, and the use of the powerful emergency alert system was a mistake. The error caused unnecessary alarm and confusion, serving as a reminder that even for the most serious of alerts, false alarms can and do happen.
Landline outage has occurred in Butler County. Residents should call 724-282-1221 or go to your local fire, police, or ambulance station to report an emergency.
One thing every rare EAS alert we've covered so far has in common is that people experiencing them still have a way out. They can all call 911 for help. For instance, if someone is stuck at home due to a shelter-in-place alert but they need immediate medical assistance, they can more than likely request an ambulance by calling the emergency service. However, when the 911 telephone outage emergency alert is issued, that option no longer exists. This alert is a critical warning that the 911 system in a specific area is down. This outage can happen for a number of reasons. The most common is simple physical damage, like a construction crew accidentally cutting a major fiber optic cable which can sever 911 services for an entire region. But failures can also be more complex, stemming from a software glitch at a 911 call center, a targeted cyber attack designed to overwhelm the network, or even the sheer volume of calls during a major disaster like an earthquake. In any of these cases, the alert is the crucial bridge to getting emergency services back in operation, as it often includes a temporary alternative 10-digit number to call for help. Even then, many might not hear the new number or fail to note it down in time, at which point they have no way of calling for help during an emergency. To understand the profound danger of a 911 outage, we have to imagine the most terrifying moment someone can experience. a loved one collapsing from a heart attack, waking up to the smell of smoke coming from a fire burning the ground floor, or hearing the sound of an intruder breaking in the back window. In that moment of pure terror, one thing people have been taught to do since childhood is to dial 911. But when this alert is active, instead of a dispatcher's reassuring voice, they get a busy signal or a recorded message saying the call cannot be completed. That is the true horror of a 911 outage. And the sad thing is, something exactly like this happened in April 2014 when a massive multi-state 911 outage occurred affecting 11 million people across 7 states. The cause was a single, preventable coding error in the software at a data center in Colorado that managed call routing. For 6 hours, this glitch blocked over 6,000 emergency calls from ever reaching a dispatcher. It's hard not to imagine many of these thousands of unanswered calls leading to completely preventable deaths and life-altering injuries, especially when even a relatively short outage can be devastating. Like in August 2024, when the 911 system in Washington, D.C. experienced critical problems after a software update was not done correctly. About 10 minutes after that update began, a call came in about a 5-month-old baby who was not breathing. The family was trying everything in their power, including constant CPR to keep the infant breathing. Unfortunately, by the time first responders received the request and rushed to the scene, it was already too late. Due to the short time span of this outage, the 911 telephone outage emergency alert and the accompanying temporary number weren't broadcast to the public, leaving the child's family with no way of getting help in time.
Alert System. We interrupt this program to bring you an important message from State Civil Defense. A tsunami warning is in effect for all Hawaiian Islands. At 7:46 p.m. Hawaii time, an earthquake measuring 8.8 magnitude occurred near Honshu, Japan. A series of tsunami waves could cause damage to all coastal areas on all islands. Tsunami waves will begin arriving in Hawaii at 2:59 a.m.
A tsunami warning is one of the most urgent large-scale alerts in EAS. It's issued only when a potential life-threatening tsunami is imminent or already on its way. Though the actual primary trigger for the alert is a major undersea earthquake, typically of magnitude 7.0 or greater, which can displace a massive amount of water and generate a series of powerful waves. These waves can travel across the ocean at the speed of a jetliner, making early warnings absolutely critical for coastal communities. The danger isn't even just one big wave, but a series of waves that can arrive over several hours, causing catastrophic flooding and destruction. If a tsunami warning is issued, the first and most important course of action is to get more information and prepare to evacuate. The EAS broadcast will usually give a direct and unambiguous command: evacuate immediately to higher ground. Localized alerts could also include tsunami evacuation routes to allow as quick of an escape to higher ground as possible. This system has been a critical tool for saving lives. A powerful real-world example occurred after the catastrophic magnitude 9.1 earthquake off the coast of Tohoku, Japan in March 2011. The quake generated a devastating tsunami that struck Japan. Sensing the incoming devastation, the U.S. National Tsunami Warning Center immediately issued tsunami warnings for Hawaii and the West Coast. Low-lying coastal areas in Honolulu, California, and Oregon were evacuated. While the tsunami that reached the U.S. was much smaller, it still caused millions of dollars in damage to harbors. However, thanks to the timely EAS tsunami warning and evacuations, there was no loss of life in the U.S.